All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to BH365's Cooking with Chef Ryan Cross. My name is Abigail Jackson. I serve as the Associate Director of Alumni Relations for the School of Social Work and the Law School. And I'm so excited to welcome you all tonight to our second program for Black History Month. So the theme for Black History Month this year is Black Health and Wellness. So we decided to do a program that features an authentic meal from the African diaspora that you all can enjoy. There's no wrong way to do this. You can have fun with it. You don't have to cut the same. You don't have to prepare it the same, as long as you just follow along and have fun. So everyone grab a beverage and get prepared to make a delicious meal. Let me introduce our chef for the evening. His name is Ryan Cross, and he's the corporate executive chef for Golden Crust. He is a self-contained chef who expresses his emotion through technique, ingredients, and plating to share and create an everlasting memory or moment. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan. Oh, wait, before I do, for those of you who just joined, if you have a question, please put it in the Q&A and we'll make sure it gets answered. Don't put it in the chat so it doesn't get lost, okay? Take it away, Ryan.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening, especially wonderful occasion, Black History Month. You know, as they did say, University of Connecticut said, 365 all year round, we're celebrating it. So thank you for joining us for this wonderful cooking event that we're going to top it off with. And, let's just really enjoy, have fun. It's nothing to really take serious. Abigail said it. It's just really to just have fun with it. There's no real technique. There's really no specialty in cuts. So we're going to have a lot of fun with it. And let me just tell you a little bit about myself at the same time. Background, I'm a Jamaican. I was born, raised in Jamaica, not for many years, but came here at a very young age and just really acquired cooking, really loved it so much. Was a part of it from baking, from my childhood with my grandparents, my parents, and at the same time, it just something that just made me so passionate where, as you see, it took over my life and career. So, as we talk about Black history and talk about culture, this is something where, coming from a very long time, it just really helped me to steer and really achieve a lot of my goals. So for what we'll be actually cooking tonight, we're going to be cooking a very traditional dish. Traditional dish, yes, Jamaica, but very popular amongst many different cultures. We're going to be cooking curry chicken tonight, one of my favorites. And the reason why it's one of my favorites is it's one of the quickest dish you could actually come home, feel extremely hungry, and be able to whip it up in no time. And that's being an experienced chef or even someone who just likes to cook with passion, with heart at home. So we're going to take it very slow. I'm not sure if you've had the opportunity to prep some of your produce, some of your product already. Here I have my chicken. And as you can see, a lot of produce, right? So Scotch bonnet peppers, potatoes, carrots, some of the ingredients that we're going to be using. But even to just stickly and just really dig deep more on some really key ingredients, some of the spices. One of the special spices that we're really going to indulge in tonight is curry. And curry itself it started back in India, you could say. And it really constructs of many other spices: cumin, turmeric, allspice, and you can add a little bit more ingredients or flavor to how you really want to make it. Tonight, we're actually not going to be making curry from scratch. It's a little bit time consuming. I don't think we have that much time tonight. But if you have any questions, like Abigail said, just go ahead and send them a message and they can let me know and maybe I can answer it at the same time.
Chef Ryan, there is a question. So someone is preparing salmon instead and wanted to know, is there anything major they should change with the recipe?
Absolutely. With the salmon itself, I would not use as much curry. I would probably tone that curry down about a good 25%.
Good question.
And even just the cooking process for cooking the salmon itself is going to be a lot more different. Salmon cooks a lot faster, and some of those spices, additionally, that we have that are actually that we're going to be using for our curry chicken, you may not want to use all of those spices with a salmon. But what we can do is actually probably go ahead and share a recipe for a salmon a little later on that you can be able to try easily at home as well.
In the chat, someone said, how about tofu?
Tofu a little bit different, only because tofu, for this application, it would be better for you to fry it.
Okay.
Give me 1 second, let me grab something from the refrigerator here. Any more questions, real quick? So as we continue, I have my chicken. Myself, personally, I prefer leg quarters. And the reason why I prefer leg quarters is what I was raised in. Why? You know, growing up, not a lot of money. It was one of the most convenient, most cost-efficient products to buy, chicken leg quarters. So I naturally adapted to making my curry chicken with leg quarters itself. Another reason for myself also is the breast itself, the white meat, it doesn't contain as much juicy moistness as the leg quarter itself, the dark meat really has. So I actually went ahead and I prepared my chicken leg quarters already by stripping them for the majority of the part and also cutting them up. I left back one just so we can demonstrate the simplicity really of just cleaning up the leg quarter. Try to take off as much fat. I try not to really just use a really big leg quarter. I try to stay maybe where it takes about 2 leg quarters to make up a pound. So usually about 8 to 10 ounces. And the reason why, the larger leg quarter, I tend to realize they tend to have a little more fat attached to it. First thing I normally do, I go ahead and take out the kidney right out of there in the middle. And as I'm pulling this leg quarter, I like to use gloves. And we're going to be working with a lot of product in the kitchen as well. So I kind of want to just make sure the less I need to wash my hands, the best. I kind of just peel the skin back. And I'm really not putting a lot of strength to it. And as you get closer to that knuckle, you want to just go ahead and put a firmer tug and pull it apart. As you can see, most of the skin is off. Not a lot of fat. No kidney. I'm gonna go ahead, take that, trash right there on the side. Now, cutting your leg quarter. The size of this leg quarter, and one of the great reasons why I don't like to use a really large one is, I want to get just the right amount of pieces where at the same time, when we're cooking this chicken, it's really not falling off the bone. So I go ahead and separate that leg from that thigh section. Now we have that drumstick. Now that drumstick, I want to go ahead and make one more cut. So it's just right there by creating a little baby drumstick and a little piece of that leg. Now, you got to be very careful when using your knife. When doing this, you don't want to use the front of your knife. You want to use the back of your blade because that is the thicker part of the knife. And just press it down firmly and you hear that click. And just go ahead and cut it. So that leg has become 2 pieces for us. Now this thigh piece, I want to go ahead and just cut it in half. Same way, with the back of the knife and just sawing across till you get 2 pieces. Now, depending on the size of your chicken, I would say on a measurement size, you're looking for about a 1 inch to a 1 inch measurement. Not exact, just approximate. I know that some people really take 1 inch by 1 inch, really technical, and they're measuring it, but no, have fun with it. So just approximate. So that 1 piece, I'm gonna go ahead and cut that in 2 more pieces. And that last piece of thigh, I'll do the same.
Does the same rule apply to chicken breasts?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
So the one difference, and one great question, the difference with chicken breasts is your chicken breast will tend to cook a lot faster, and you don't want to overcook your chicken breast because it'll tend to dry out as much because it doesn't contain as much fat as the dark meat does.
Okay. So I'll cut it up mine into chunks.
That would be great. So I'm going to give everyone some time. Let's take about 2-3 minutes or so. Get your chicken ready, and then we'll come back and move on. But here you can pay good attention to my chicken. It's already in a bowl. And then from there, we'll actually go ahead and start seasoning. And then meanwhile, I'm going to go ahead and clean my tools so we can get to the next step. Always remember, chicken itself is one of the most dangerous proteins out there because of the type of bacteria, which is salmonella, that actually can transmit to other things. So be very sure to wash with a good amount of soap, water. I usually like to use warm water. Another bowl here. So some of the spices that we're actually going to use tonight, we spoke about curry powder. The curry powder of my choice tonight is actually a golden crust blend. It's not a blend you could actually get to purchase out in the stores, but the closest thing that you can actually get to it is Blue Mountain Curry. And one of the reasons why I like golden crust or Blue Mountain Curry, you would say, is because of the color. The color itself gives a nice, rich, not a very dark orangey color or too much of a highlighted yellow like a mustard, but it's in between, almost like it has a little hint of brown. We also spoke about all-purpose seasoning for one of the first ingredients that you're going to use to marinate your chicken as well. Now, all-purpose seasoning, it's really going to come down to really your, I would say, your sodium intake that you like to take. You know, you can try many different all-purpose seasonings out there. Some will have a lot more sodium than some will have a little bit more spice. You just have to really try the one that really fits the balance for your palate, all right? The all-purpose seasoning that I am actually using tonight as well is a golden crust all-purpose seasoning. The next best thing that I could possibly recommend closest to this that you will be able to get is probably a Grace all-purpose seasoning inside the stores.
We have a question.
Go ahead.
I have a really hot tasting curry and between a low to medium. What is right? Which one should she use?
I would say medium.
Medium, okay.
Yeah. And the reason why I say use a medium curry, if you observe some of the ingredients that we're actually going to use, we're going to also be using a Scotch bonnet pepper. So if you're going to use a medium curry with this, you know, the Blue Mountain curry itself and the Golden Crust curry, it's a very much medium curry. So it has a little bit of spice to it. Now, the additional spice that we're going to add with that Scotch bonnet pepper is definitely going to turn the heat up. So I recommend if you're going to use a hot curry, probably dilute a little bit of your spice that you're adding to your recipe.
Makes sense.
So everyone should have their chicken ready to go. Now, I'm going to go ahead, and as you see, just go ahead and add my curry.
When you're adding the ingredients, can you remind us how much, just in case people haven't portioned them out yet?
Yeah, so we have 2 pounds of chicken. Then we had 5.5 tablespoons of curry powder.
Okay.
Then we
Alright,
have
I'm gonna
tablespoons of our all-purpose seasoning. Now, in normal cases, you'd probably want to go ahead and pre-season this. Now, the reason why I said I love curry chicken so much is because it's one of those quick dishes you can come home, season it quickly, start cooking it right away, and at the same time, with the amount of ingredients that you can add to it, it's still going to have a very nice intensified taste. All right? Excuse me.
I'm sorry, I'm a little slow. What was the second thing I'm adding after the curry powder?
You're adding your all-purpose seasoning?
All-purpose seasoning, okay. I have this. Is this okay? Adobo, all-purpose?
So the adobo itself, just remember later on when you add adobo in the recipe, let's not use that. And for
Okay.
I would also recommend not using 2 tablespoons of the adobo with the amount of curry that you're using. I would probably go ahead and just use half of it. So use 1 tablespoon of the adobo.
Okay.
Adobo itself contains a lot of sodium.
I
As
did
a
not
lot
know
of
that.
spices. Go ahead and, a good thing that I always tell everyone is this: the spices that you cook with, taste them. Try a little bit of it. You get more familiarized by trying it. Just because the recipe tells you a dash of this, a tablespoon of that, at the same time, taste it. See what it is that you're actually adding to that recipe. That's when the passion really starts to come out. And when you're actually cooking other things, you get even more passionate because you're like, man, I know what that ingredient tastes like. So chicken, curry powder, all-purpose seasoning. We're just going to go ahead and just rub that together very nice. And this technically what we're doing is we're seasoning it, but it would have really been part of our marination process.
How long could you do this ahead of time? How long should you do this ahead of time?
If my mother really knew I was doing this now, or even let's say a master chef to me, they would pretty much tell me, Mr. Cross, you know better. You should be marinating your meat. And I would always recommend 24 hours prior. You can do it hours prior, but sometimes the longer it sits there, and I give it 24 hours, the more flavors the protein itself is going to absorb.
The curry powder smells so good.
Oh, absolutely wonderful. So it should look like this. It should look pretty much, you're talking about the meat very well coated. Curry itself tends to look a bit dry. So you don't need to add a little water. Sometimes if you realize it actually is not taking all of it up, you can add a tip of water, but you don't really need it. We're still going to add it all to the pot. Right, so our curry chicken is actually seasoned, ready. Here, I have a pot. The pot that I have pretty much is, I'm using almost pretty much like a saute. It doesn't matter what type of pot you use, you know. Back home, really, we would use a Dutch pot. I don't have a Dutch pot to use tonight, which is very traditional within the Caribbean. So I'm gonna use pretty much like stock pot or a saute pot.
Okay, and this pot is for what? The chicken?
Correct, this is what we're gonna add.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna go ahead. No flame as you see. I'm just gonna go ahead and add that chicken directly to my pot.
Oh, no oil, no nothing?
Nothing.
Okay. No flames, no oil, chicken in the pan.
And the reason why I say no oil, nothing, this is a one pot turn on and go. With our timing that we're actually gonna do with our vegetables, as well as our rice, this process should only really take about a 25-minute cooking process. If you have, or if you're using chicken breast, probably even faster. And if you're using fish itself, even faster. So at the same time, we want to make sure that we're timing ourselves, and we don't want to move too quickly. Remember, some of our guests, they're having their nice little drink at the same time. Take some time to sit and enjoy. So next ingredients. We asked for garlic cloves, okay? Minced garlic, we want to do about 3 cloves.
Oh, I need to do more cloves.
And I have the garlic already ready, but I want to go ahead and actually just demonstrate how I got to that stage. Here we have 1 head of garlic, which is made up of a few cloves. And I just slowly just crushed it where I can remove a clove. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and take my knife, and the side of my knife with the blade away from my hand, I'm gonna go ahead and press down till you hear crunches of it. That makes it a lot easier to remove the flesh from the skin of the garlic. As you can see there. Now, as for mince, it doesn't necessarily have to be minced. The reason why I like to mince my garlic is, I'm a big fan of garlic, by the way. It has so many benefits, but the reason why I like to mince it is, mincing it gives that garlic time to release the oil even more. The smaller that you actually mince your product, it gives it opportunity for the oils to release during the cooking process and take on a lot more of that aroma, that taste even better to make a more flavorful dish. So now this clove of garlic, I'm gonna go ahead and start slicing. I like to start off in slices first, which then allows me to have better control when I want to go ahead and mince. And by mincing, to get to that stage, I just go ahead and use the back of my knife blade and continue to chop. Every now and then, you go ahead and slide that garlic off of the side of your knife. And you can mince or chop more. And just go ahead and repeat that process as many times as possible till you get to the desired size that you want to get your garlic to.
There's a question. Someone made a comment, they love curry, but not the hot. What is a good trade on the Scotch bonnet peppers?
What, they love the curry, but not the hot?
Right, that's correct.
Maybe they meant not the heat.
Okay, so
I'm
the
not sure.
heat, okay. All right, so when we get to the part of adding the Scotch bonnet pepper, which I believe it asks for half, and half of the Scotch bonnet pepper, moving a little ahead there, this is a small size. Normally, when you buy a Scotch bonnet pepper fresh in the store, you're usually going to get pretty much about double that size. But the season that we're in right now, you're going to be getting them a little bit smaller. So just cut your Scotch bonnet pepper in half. Instead of using a half of what the recipe calls for, use a quarter. And the purpose of also this Scotch bonnet pepper, when we add it, and I'm going to just tell you now because the question came up, is really not so much for a spice. The Scotch bonnet pepper itself will give us so much flavor. So after chopping your garlic up, what we want to do next is the same thing for your ginger. And as you chop these ingredients up just to add, throw them right in the pot. Don't wait. Just throw them right in the pot. We'll give everyone probably about a minute or so to finish up with their garlic. So garlic has so many benefits. Benefits for blood pressure itself. And believe it or not many people know that garlic itself is actually from the onion family. So, you know, in the hotel industry, in a lot of dining street nowadays, you know, there's a lot of preferences. So, you know, I myself did not know also garlic was a part of the onion family until I decided to take the culinary itself on a different level. But a lot of benefits. So our next ingredient, what's called for is ginger. So I have a big piece of ginger here. I actually have my ginger ready also, but just a simple thing I'm going to show. Ginger itself, also one of my favorite ingredients. Great for teas, great for a lot of health benefits. But peeling ginger now, I'm not going to use my knife to peel it. The easiest way you can actually peel the ginger is by taking a spoon, which I have my measuring spoon right here, and just go ahead and scrape it. If you scrape, you will see the skin of the ginger just comes right off. Can everyone see that?
Yes. I'm glad you're showing that because I didn't know what to do with the ginger. I tried to cut it up and it ended up in chunks like this, like large cubes. It's like, how do I peel this?
No
So I'm gonna
worries.
try again.
Peel it with a spoon. It's a lot safer. Just remember, when you're having fun in the kitchen, when you're making these and you're creating these creations that you're going to enjoy so much, practice safety first. At home, I cook a lot with my family, especially with my daughter, and she's 10 years old. Start to think she's starting to become a better chef than myself, but I tell her all the time, safety is so important because she thinks she has it so much, but she also hasn't learned the dangers of a lot of things that have sharp edges. Even as a chef, every now and then I may get a cut in the kitchen. So here we have our ginger peeled. Just gonna clear this away. So once my ginger is peeled, Abigail said she didn't know what to do with it, but I do the same thing as I do with my garlic. I slice it first, get nice thin slices, which then allows me to be able to do that same rough chop process. And remember, there's no wrong way in doing this. Just making sure that you hold the knife where you need to hold it and the blade is away from doing any harm to yourself. And just rough chop away. As you get a little bit more comfortable with the knife you're using, you'll be able to chop a little bit faster. Not sure if you can see the ginger I have here.
Mhm.
Pretty much rough chopped. If you like, you can actually go a little finer. Now, the recipe itself calls for, what, 3 tablespoons. I would say, well, it calls for 4 tablespoons. Like I said, myself personally, I really like ginger. And I think ginger itself is a great ingredient to highlight curry. It really opens up the flavor. And I know there were some questions about heat tolerance earlier. Ginger is also something, if you do use a little bit too much of it, it can come off a little bit more on the heat side. So if you're afraid of that high real spice heat, probably use a little bit less ginger also. Next, onion. Onion pretty much is, I would say, is almost in every single dish. It's one of the key ingredients in giving great flavor and marinating, even in the different ways where you can use it in caramelizing it. But from what I've noticed in my culinary experience, it's pretty much in every single protein that I've had the opportunity to really try. Culture-wise, it's used by every single culture. So here we have our onion, and I'm actually just using a yellow onion itself. We go ahead and cut the top off the onion. Also my base. What I did was just created a flat side on both the bottom and the top. Now I'm going to take that onion and I'm just going to go ahead and cut it in half. I know some of you might be saying, well, why didn't I peel the onion first? The reason why I didn't want to peel the onion first is it tends to be a little bit harder for myself to be able to peel it when it's still round. I've realized once cutting it in half, now I'm able to pull back that layer and it comes apart a lot easier. I'm gonna do the same thing with the other side. And I believe our recipe calls for about a half a cup of onion. Now, for this onion, what I'm gonna do is actually cut it in cubes. Whoops, good catch. So, I have half of my onion. I'm gonna go ahead and cut it in half again. I cut it lengthwise of the grain of the onion. You know those curvy lines that you can see on the top of the onion? So so I cut it in half. Then I go ahead and I cut it again in half additionally. So that way I have actually 4 quarters. Now I go ahead and I spin my onion around in the opposite direction. And I do the same thing pretty much on the other sides. So you get nice brunoise or cubes or diced onions. I'll give everyone some time to go ahead and get their onions prepped. Are your onions ready, Abigail?
Yes, I chopped up my vegetables beforehand.
Oh, okay. So you're ahead.
Yeah, so I'm a bit ahead. I'm usually behind on these things, but I'm ready.
So our recipe calls for a half cup of onions. If you notice, I had a whole onion, but I'm only using half of it. So,
okay,
you know, I think this is also a wonderful way to actually learn a little bit of measurements by the product and that by the product sometimes you buy in the store. Normally when you buy an onion in the store, it's usually about the size of a tennis ball. So that tennis ball itself, half of it, once cut up in pieces, pretty much gives us a half a cup. So if you have a recipe that you have to do in the future, it calls for about a half a cup of chopped onions, you know, pretty much it's a half of onion. Go ahead and add that directly to my recipe. I'm gonna rest this ingredient on the side. So next we'll move on to our scallion chopped. My scallion is actually already chopped. And there's no right or wrong way to chop it. To be honest, there are many people I actually know who cooks their curry chicken and they actually don't chop. Rather than chopping it, they actually just take the knife and they actually just smash it, just like they pretty much do with a garlic, and they throw it in a pot. So our recipe now calls for half a cup of scallion, going to add that to the pot directly. We'll give everyone some time to whether they want to chop their scallion and add it to the pot. Abigail will go when you go.
Oh, I'm good.
Oh, you're good. Okay.
Good. Yeah.
So,
the scallions are easy, so I think we can move on.
all right. And just one thing about scallion. Scallion itself is a part of the onion family. At the same time, scallion itself is not as potent as onion. It has a little bit more of a milder taste. So it's your option. If you like the taste, more of that raw taste of like an onion, you can use that rather than using scallion. Or if you don't like the taste of onion itself, you can change over and just use scallion.
Good to know.
Scallion is also known as green onion in the store also. So don't see the name green onion and be like, he said scallion. It's not also known as green onions. Next, we're going to be using thyme. Thyme, a very important spice that's actually in curry chicken also. And thyme has a wonderful aroma. Looks a little bit like rosemary, but once added to that dish and given time to really infuse, it releases such a beautiful taste that actually brings a lot of earthy, good flavor to your dish. We're going to use about 5 sprigs of thyme. So 5 sprigs. Usually when I have a bunch of thyme, I like to look for the big sticks. Why? If I don't plan to chop it up or either blend it up, usually that big stick of thyme usually contains about a few different sprigs on it. So therefore, I'm able to just add it to my pot. Remember to rinse it. Mine is already rinsed. And just add it directly to your pot.
Chef,
Now-
So my grocery store didn't have thyme, which I find very odd, but I have sage. Could I use another herb, or
I
do
would-
we have to stick? You wouldn't use sage? Okay.
I wouldn't use sage. The next best thing that you might use that will give you a little bit more flavor closer to that thyme taste, I would probably use a little bit of fresh oregano.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Chef,
fresh.
there's a question.
Yeah.
And your opinion on whether it should be fresh or dry?
Fresh. You remember dry herbs itself, once they actually get in contact with liquid, they tend to release a lot more flavor and tend to be a little more potent after a period of time. So it's a lot harder to judge. So our thyme's in our pot. And one of the reasons why I was telling you, I go and I look for that large root of thyme is because it's one thing that I actually don't want all over inside the pot, the sticks and everything. So I know using that one big root, it pretty much stays in contact. It gives the time where with the heat, with the moisture, all the little particles off of the root itself would tend to start to just fall off of that, those roots. Next, we're going to get to one of my favorite ingredients, one of my favorite peppers is the Scotch bonnet. Now, Scotch bonnet, and I laugh when I say it because I've given so many bets that this is actually one of the hottest peppers out there. If you don't know and you're thinking about trying it out, don't buy when it's decide to eat it. Try a little piece first. I've seen many that decide to try a whole entire pepper and they regret it.
Oh,
Now, you'll see here, I have a few different colors. For this particular recipe, and I didn't really state it because it really does, I don't want you to go out and say, you know what, I have to find the red ones, I have to find the green ones, the orange ones. I'm actually going to use a little bit more of the orangey, more yellow. And the reason why the orangey more yellow, I want a little bit more spice. The orange and the yellow tends to give a little spice, where the green one itself tends to give a little bit more of flavor. I know someone had a question earlier concerning the spice, asking, well, you know, they have a hot curry, so they didn't want to really add too much of a heavier spice or too much more heat to their dish. Cut down on the Scotch bonnet pepper. The one thing I always say is, you know, you can always add spice later on during the cooking process, but the one thing that you can't do is take away spice. So I'm gonna have this Scotch bonnet pepper, and don't do this at home. If you notice, I'm using my bare hands. The one reason is I know I'm not coming in contact with the seed, and I'm very used to this pepper itself. But for yourself, use gloves, especially if you're gonna use a Scotch bonnet. If you're not able to get a Scotch bonnet pepper, the next closest thing that you might be able to get to it is a habanero pepper.
okay. That was going to be my question. Thank you.
Scotch bonnet peppers itself that originate from Jamaica, I can tell you, some of the best flavors added to a lot of dishes. If you notice, I actually just chopped mine up a little. I'm gonna go ahead and just get that off my board and add it straight to my pot. Now, one of my great experiences and something I get to really work a lot with is wonderful spices and ingredients working with golden crust. Scotch bonnet peppers are one of the peppers they bring in pretty much weekly directly from Jamaica, just to be able to create their wonderful beef patties, vegetable, just the entire line of patties that we do entirely. So know that when you eat a beef patty, when you eat any form of patty from Golden Crest, it's made with great produce that are coming directly from Jamaica itself. So we got our Scotch bonnet pepper. Next thing that we're gonna go with pimento seed. Now, pimento seed, also known as allspice, gives great flavor, but can be overpowering if used too much.
Could you bring it closer to the camera so we can see what that looks like?
Is that better?
Oh, yeah, that's different than what I found. I couldn't find that either in the stores.
Did you find allspice?
No. I got this that says sliced pimentos. I think that's something completely different.
Oh, you
I
got
won't use it.
pimento. Pimento.
Pimentos. Oh, okay.
I get a little tongue-tied saying it sometimes. But it's allspice. And if you're not able to get pimento seed, you're fine to use ground allspice. So I'm gonna take 5 pimento seeds, add them directly to my dish, and move on to the next process, which is the granulated garlic. I have granulated garlic here. I like to specify granulated because with using powder, powder tends to clump up once it's added to a liquid, or it's pretty much in a liquid, it doesn't pretty much dissolve as much. So I like granulated, which pretty much does that. I'm gonna add my garlic, which I know in your recipe, it calls for, I believe, 3 tablespoons. Actually, 1 tablespoon. You're fine with using half of that. Then we also have granulated onion powder. Same thing, I prefer to use the granulated rather than the really pureed onion powder itself. Also, I'm going to be adding that directly to my pot. And now we have adobo, which the recipe calls for 1 teaspoon of adobo. Now, I think someone earlier said that they didn't have all-purpose seasoning, so they were using adobo instead.
Yeah, that was me.
So let's not add this adobo step to your recipe.
Okay.
Because like I said earlier, you know, adobo is one ingredient that actually contains a lot of sodium itself. So, you know, one thing that we can always add to the dish is a little bit of salt if we need to. So we have our adobo. Now we need butter. You can either use butter, margarine, your preference. All we're doing is just adding a little bit of fat, and I know someone said earlier, no oil. This is my oil that I'm actually adding to my dish. Calls for 2 tablespoons. If you're lucky enough to buy pretty much the bar, which is 4 ounces, it says, and it shows it to you right there on the side, the measurement. I'm gonna add that directly to my dish. Then we have our carrots cut and our potato. We're not gonna add that, and we're just gonna come back to that a little bit later on. What we're gonna do now is go ahead and get our 3 cups of water and add that directly to our pot.
Jeff, there was a question on how much ground allspice should one use?
So the recipe calls for 5 allspices. I would only use a 1/4 teaspoon of allspice.
Thank you.
So we're gonna add 3 cups of water. One. Two. Three. Then what we're gonna do after that is go ahead and turn our flame on. Flame is very important when making curry chicken. When making any dish. You don't want to have too much of a high flame and you don't want to have too much of a low flame. One thing also with chicken is if you cook chicken for too long, it will break apart. It will tend to mash out and pretty much you're talking about more stringy. And we don't want that to happen with our curry chicken. So what we want to do is, I'm going to go ahead and pull this pot to the side. Can you see the flame? My flame is at a high. I'm going to go ahead and turn it to a medium high flame. Then I'm going to take a spoon. If you have a wooden spoon, doesn't make a difference. Let's just stir all these ingredients together. Once you stir your ingredients together and get everything pretty much mixed up, combined, go ahead and cover your pot with the lid. I always say, take a minute, check the time. Right now, time-wise,
7:24.
7:24. We said about 25 minutes. So in about 20 minutes, we're going to come back and check that, which will be about 7:44. In the meanwhile, what we're going to do next is get our rice ready. Here, I have my pot for my rice. And the recipe calls for 2 cups of rice. to 3 cups of water.
Now that's strange. I usually do a 2-to-1 ratio for rice to water.
It all depends also what type of rice you're cooking with.
Oh, okay.
So today we're actually using a long grain enriched rice.
Mm-hmm.
I call it a white rice. If you're using a parboiled rice, you would definitely use more of a 2-to-1 ratio. It parboiled itself takes a lot more liquid. So we're gonna go ahead and
So you put your rice in the pot first before you put the water?
No, I'm actually putting my water in my pot first right now.
Okay.
Chef, there's a question. One is asking, should I use the same amount of water to salmon?
Well, no. Well, remember earlier when the question came about with the salmon, I said the cooking process of the salmon would be different. So that would be something that we would have to share probably separately, or we could send them a different recipe. But the process itself, you would not need the water for the salmon. No. This process I would recommend for the salmon would be searing the salmon off on both sides first, then possibly putting it in the oven just to not overcook it. Or you can continue cooking it on the stovetop with a little bit of water, but on a very low flame.
Great, thank you. And another question is, should the rice be rinsed?
You can rinse your rice. I'm not going to rinse this rice, but it's a personal preference. So I got 2 cups of water so far. We need 1 more. Also calls for 2 tablespoons of butter. I'm gonna add my 2 tablespoons of butter. Half teaspoon of salt. Here we have the measurement spoons. So 1 teaspoon, 1 tablespoon. Just so you know, 3 tablespoons makes up, 3 teaspoons actually make up 1 tablespoon. Here we need a half. Add that straight to the pot. I'm gonna go ahead and take the lid, cover it up, turn my flame. On a medium heat and just give that pot some time and that water to come to a slight bubble. Once it
The
comes
rice is not in there yet, right?
No rice is in there at all. All we have in our pot right now for our rice, all we have in our pot is just the water, the salt, and the butter. We're just gonna allow that water to just get very hot before we add our rice to it. In the meanwhile, while we're doing that, will be a great time. We're gonna go ahead and prep our steamed vegetables. All right, 1 minute. So our steamed veg. We're gonna be using a variety of different ingredients for our steamed vegetables. We're going to be using cabbage, green bell peppers, red bell peppers, and carrots. Now, for those of you who haven't prepped your potatoes and carrots yet for your curry chicken, let's make sure you have those ready, so that way we can add those to the pot very soon. Are your potatoes and carrots prepped already, Abigail?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you're ahead of the game.
I
So-
couldn't find another thing. My grocery didn't have like the whole carrots. So I got baby carrots and I just
Oh,
chopped them
beautiful.
in half.
See,
Yeah.
that-
They were the size that I feel like are bite sized. So I figured that would work.
ladies and gentlemen, don't go the hard route. If there's a convenient way to speed up the process, I tell you, do it. So, quick way of peeling the carrot for myself. I use a potato peeler. Usually have one carrot, I go down one direction. And as I am peeling, I'm twirling my carrot. So by that time, once you're finished, you should have about 3/4 of your carrot already peeled. You flip it on the other side, and you peel the other end. Now that I have my carrot peeled, I'm just going to go ahead and cut the ends off slightly. Not too much because I don't want to waste any product. Split my carrot in half. Once my carrot is split in half, cut small cubes to add to my dish for my curry chicken. These cubes are about 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch size. For the potato, I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing. Using my potato peeler, holding my potato nice and with a firm grip, peel and twirl. Now, those of you, if you might not have a potato peeler, it's perfectly fine to use a knife. Just make sure you're not using a chef's knife. Try not to use a big knife that is very hard to handle because that is a great way to definitely hurt yourself if you're trying to do that. Once my potato is peeled, I'm going to go ahead and cut it in half. Cut it in half again. So now we have 2 pieces. And pretty much cut cubes, which are about the same size, 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. Now, if you have your carrots and your potatoes ready, I think currently right now, we're about 9 minutes in. It's a great time to go ahead and add your carrots to your curry chicken. It's also a great time to add your potatoes to your curry chicken. And have a look at that there. You can see that that's actually starting to bubble up. Let's stir this all together. Look at that beautiful color. Curry's not very dark. Has a very vibrant color to it. Let's make sure everything pretty much gets into that sauce. And look at the size of your chicken pieces as they start to actually shrink.
Since I did chicken breast, should it still be 20 minutes?
Your chicken breast, I would definitely cut your time. Overall, we said that this process is going to take about 25 minutes. Depending on your size of your chicken breast, if it is a 1 inch by 1 inch, that may take you possibly about 12 minutes cooking time, 12, 15 minutes cooking time.
Oh no, okay.
So now we have our water for our rice. It's actually starting to boil. Can you see that there, Abigail?
Mm-hmm. Mine is boiling too.
So we're gonna take our rice and we're gonna add it to our pot. Now, once you add that rice to your pot, just go ahead and stir your pot just so it's not a mound of rice sitting in that water. It pretty much evens out. And then you want to make sure that your flame is definitely not too hot. I've lowered my flame to about a medium heat, which will give it time for our rice to really absorb that water as it gets hotter and hotter and start to swell a bit. My curry chicken, which is here, it's really starting to bubble up. I think we had that on a medium high heat. We can go ahead and just lower that flame to about a little less than a medium heat to give it some time to really simmer. So I would say about a little bit above a simmer.
You said a little bit above a simmer?
A little bit above a simmer, yes. So we have all our ingredients pretty much in our pot for our curry chicken. Our rice is going. Now it's a great time to get our steamed veg ready. Our steamed veg, which will be consistent of the cabbage, like we said earlier. And someone had a very good question earlier. They asked, how should they cut their cabbage? It's really up to your preference. Myself, I pretty much like my cabbage cut as a julienne, which is more in strips, or you can even cut it in cubes. So what I do is I cut my cabbage in quarters. Once I have it in a quarter, my leaves are already washed. I take those green leaves off, those green ones. Don't discard them. They're beautiful to add a lot of character to your veg. Then I usually just take my knife and just shave it.
That's pretty.
Therefore, we can get nice long strips. Or maybe you might not like the strips. There's nothing wrong in doing chunks. If you order out from a Chinese restaurant, if you get mixed veg, if you get cabbage, it usually comes in chunks. So there's no wrong or right way. Or you can play around and make a design. I'm gonna put this to the side. So I have the rest of my cabbage that's ready. Also, our red peppers and green peppers, I did it the same exact way. I cut my red peppers and my green peppers in strips. Quick, easy way, I'm gonna go ahead and peel one pepper. I can show you, which is, you wanna take your pepper, hold it to the side, and just slightly cut that top off. Once you cut that top off, you're able to go ahead and pull the stem right out. Then I want to also cut the pepper at the base, so now my pepper sits flat. Then you can really cut off nice meat chunks off of the sides of your peppers. Once you get those nice big chunks, you want to just go ahead and just like the cabbage, cut strips. These strips can be your pretty much desired size. I always say, try not to cut your red or your green peppers too thin because they release water very quickly and then you lose that nutrient and you tend to lose the coloration of it also. carrots. We peeled the carrot earlier. I'm going to show you quickly how to shred it. So, carrot that we peeled earlier. What I'm going to do is just go ahead and slice my carrot on the side. Once I slice my carrot on the side, you're able to put two together, two slices. And at an angle, you want to just go ahead and just cut smaller slices. So that way you're able to achieve, as we call them, little matchstick carrots. So we have everything ready for our steamed vegetables. We have our cabbage, red peppers, and green peppers. And we're also going to be needing 2 tablespoons of butter. Here, I'm going to go ahead and take my 2 tablespoons of butter, add it directly to the pot. And turn my flame on a medium heat. I'm going to give that butter a little bit of time just to melt down and coat the full bottom of my pot. And the reason why I'm going to do that is when I add my cabbage directly to the pot, I don't want it to start burning right away. So a little bit of butter definitely helps with that. I am not one to add water to my veg, but if you'd like to, you can. Once we cover that cabbage up and those vegetables up, it's actually going to steam enough liquid for our steamed veg itself. So no need to add water, but if you want to, you can. Here we are, our curry chicken is coming on very nice.
Yeah, my timer has 3 minutes left for the curry.
Okay. You look at that, it's also sprung a lot of liquid. And if you go ahead and take your spoon, take the edge of your spoon, you can actually go ahead and pierce that meat. And you can see that it's pretty much tender enough where it goes through pretty easy. You don't really have to put a lot of force to it. Our rice is starting to bubble up. Not completely ready yet. That rice should have probably about another 9 minutes. And then meanwhile, we're going to go ahead now and just heat up a little bit by just moving our pot around to just let that butter coat the bottom of our pot for our cabbage. We give it a little bit more flame. And now's a good time, if we're waiting, you can actually start getting rid of any ingredients that you don't need. Are there any questions that possibly, I can answer during this time? Abigail?
I'm all set. So we have peppers, shredded carrots, and cabbage left, right? That should be the only ingredients we have left? Okay. And we answered the salmon question. We answered the chicken breast question. Okay. Oh, there is one. Is there a creaminess to the sauce?
Cleanliness?
Creaminess? Creamy?
Yes.
Like
So as all depending on what type of curry that you're actually using, some curries may have a little bit more viscosity than some as the process continues. If you feel that it's a little bit more, if it has a little more viscosity and it actually feels or tastes a little grainy, you might want to add a little bit more liquid to your pot.
My timer just went off for the chicken.
All right, so for you, because you're using chicken breast, I would recommend.
No, I set a 20-minute timer. So I'm because mine were pretty large.
Okay, perfect.
So I set a time. You said 20 minutes for everyone. So I set a timer for 20 minutes.
Exactly. So currently right
Should
now,
I lower the heat?
at that 20 minutes, I always recommend, it's a perfect time to go ahead and taste your sauce.
Okay.
So stir it up. It's a good time right now if you need a little more spice. That's good. That's very good. For myself, what I taste the ginger that I like so much. I definitely taste the spice. I taste the allspice. I can taste the thyme. The thyme itself is not very heavy, but I taste the allspice a little bit more. Those are key note ingredients that you want to taste when having curry chicken. The curry itself is not a very overly powerful curry for myself. So I get it, but it's not very strong. So, I mean, for my dish, taste is very balanced. For your dish at home, depending on the type of curry you use, and also the type of spices or where they came from can make a difference. Now is where you adjust your pot. If you think you may need a little more salt, a little more spice, go ahead and add it to it. The one thing that I would not recommend adding to your dish right now are fresh produce. Now would not be the best time to possibly try to say add more fresh ginger or fresh onions, because a lot of those products itself, they won't break down fast enough by the time your chicken is actually ready. So we have our curry chicken. I'm gonna go ahead and just turn the fire completely on low for our curry chicken. We should only have about 43 minutes left on that. So we're just gonna leave it on low in the meanwhile, while we finish up our steamed veg.
Okay, so leave the chicken as is with the flame on?
Yes, just on low. Just on low so it stays warm.
Okay.
You know, all depending on how strong your flame is also, you can turn it off, because I can tell you there are some flames that pretty much, even at putting it on a low, it seems as if it's still boiling that food. So, you know, just use your judgment. I'm just keeping mine on low because definitely I want it to stay nice and hot right now.
Okay.
Chef, there's a participant, Chef.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so there's a participant that likes the creaminess, but was just wondering if you added a thickener like flour or cornstarch.
No, I didn't. So my curry chicken, and if you're following the recipe, I didn't add any form of thickening agent to it. Cornstarch you can use, and there are many people that do use cornstarch. The reason why I didn't use cornstarch in mine is because the amount that we're using to the amount of curry ratio that we use, it's enough curry to it where the curry will actually thicken up and absorb a lot of that liquid, where the viscosity will be a lot more on the thicker side. You know, not everybody likes that though. I don't add any cornstarch to it.
And what happens if someone's sauce is too spicy?
Well, and that's what it is. It's going to be a key depending on the type of curry that you're using. So, you know, like I said, for myself, I use the Blue Mountain curry, which is fine. I like that curry itself. It's not overly spicy, and it doesn't really give a pasty taste. Does that answer the question, Milagros?
Let me see. They said they think they supercharged their Scotch bonnet.
Oh, really? So remember, Scotch bonnets also itself, you know, they're never going to have the same flavor. And this is one of the reasons why I say, you know, add half the recipe. You can always add more later on. Don't overkill yourself with a pepper that you haven't used because you just bought it from the store. Just add a little bit of it and add more after if you need to. or better yet, eat it fresh. Which is one of my favorite things to do with curry chicken also. So my butter is melted. What I'm gonna do is go ahead and turn that flame up to about a medium heat. And the first thing I'm gonna add is my cabbage. Next thing that I will add is my matchstick carrots, or if you have your shredded carrots, that's fine. Now, I really don't like to over season my mixed veg. Now, it's open, you can add whatever you like to this. If you want to add fresh garlic, thyme, ginger, anything that you want to add more flavor. I like to keep mine very simple, and the reason is I think my curry chicken itself has so much flavor. I don't want to marry too many flavors together where I really can't tell the difference of what I'm eating. I'm gonna go ahead and add some salt.
I like using garlic salt.
Yeah, garlic salt is very good also, but garlic salt tends to be a little salty at times. It's one of those,
Okay.
it's
Yeah,
one of
just a
those,
little bit goes a long way.
yeah, absolutely, it does. I have some black pepper here. Now, if you turn your flame up to about a medium, you should start hearing that cabbage really start to sizzle. Notice I have not added my red and my green peppers this yet. As you start to hear that start to sizzle, go ahead and lower that heat just a little bit lower. And then you can cover your pot. Oh, let's not forget, you can go ahead, stir it up together also.
I want to let you know we have about 8 minutes left for the evening, just to be mindful of time.
Yep, let's go ahead and let that go ahead and steam down for about 3 minutes. And now we can check in our rice. I'm gonna go ahead and turn my flame down to a very low for my rice.
Ooh, nice and fluffy.
So I'm gonna bring it closer to the camera here, as you can see. It's nice. You can see that the color's actually starting to get more opaque. In the recipe, I said to use a fork, and the reason why I like to use a fork is the fork helps to create that fluffiness. And I just want you to look at it. Then I'm gonna go ahead and put that back on my flame and just allow it to steam for about 3 to 4 more minutes.
This is probably the best pot of rice I've ever made. I'm going to use long grain rice from now on.
Yeah, just remember, depending on the type of rice you're using, some may like basmati, the parboiled, the water ratio tends to be a little bit different. Nevertheless, you always add water at the end during your steaming process. And at the end, meaning turn that flame down. I know some people like to go ahead and use plastic wrap, foil paper. That's the point, the steaming process we're calling it, where your rice really starts to fluff up, and then you can actually see if it needs a little bit more water or not, or it can be a little bit too hard. So, don't try to add too much water in the beginning. If you add too much water in the beginning, just remember, you can't fix it. It's done with. You can take it and try to make rice porridge after, but at the same time, that still won't be even a great texture for rice porridge.
Chef, what's your opinion on jasmine rice?
Oh, beautiful. Jasmine rice itself is a great product. The problem is it doesn't take a lot of water as well. So even, I know Abigail said earlier, she uses a 2-to-1 ratio for the rice she normally uses. And today we use pretty much a 1 to 1.5 ratio. That jasmine rice may probably take a 1-to-1 ratio. The jasmine rice, the grains tend to be a little bit shorter, but tend to be a little bit more oval at the same time. So they tend to fluff a lot faster. So 3 to 4 minutes.
Before we continue, for the students that have joined us this evening, Milagros is going to put a link to a Google Doc. If you could put your name in that Google Doc to be, we have a door prize for your attendance. So please put your name in that Google Doc so that we can draw a name for the prize. Thank you.
So right now, I think everyone, if you open up your steamed veg, your cabbage should actually start to sweat. For myself here, I'm gonna bring mine closer to the screen. You can start to see the colors start to get a lot more vibrant. Whoops. As the colors start to get more vibrant, and if you cut your cabbage in nice thin strips like I did, the process goes a lot faster. I like to add my red peppers and my green peppers pretty much at the end. Stir it up. That's really starting to come together very nice. Looks like a beautiful medley. Can everyone see that?
Yep, that's pretty.
And now comes to the wonderful part of the evening. Our cabbage is ready. I'm going to go ahead and just lower the fire completely low. Our curry chicken's already ready. And our rice is just there. So in our last 2 minutes, what I'm going to quickly do is just show you easy, quick plating that we can do for our dish. So I have my spoon, and don't mind the shape of my spoon. It could be a regular spoon. You just want to go ahead. I'm going to take about 2 spoons of this rice. Directly in the center of my plate. Another one directly in the center of my plate. I just want to make a little divot in the center. Once I make that divot, we're going to go ahead to the curry chicken. I'm going to stir my curry chicken up a bit there. Smells great. I'm going to take that curry chicken and put about 1 or 2 pieces directly in the center of that rice. So those 2 pieces of curry chicken. Once I do that, I want to go ahead and just grab some of those carrots, those potatoes, just put it on your plate. So then we have our curry chicken, our rice. We're just going to take a nice portion of our steamed veg and just right on the side of our rice. So our curry chicken, white rice, and steamed vegetables.
I am so excited to dig in. Thank you so much, Chef Cross.
Oh, thank you so much. And please, guests, I hope you share some of your thoughts and let us know, how did your meal taste?
Definitely, if you all will receive a post-event email, and if you want to respond to that email with pictures of your meal, that would be fun.
That would be exciting.
But yeah, this was
My email is
really
listed.
fun.
Also, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I look forward to seeing the pictures. Thank you so much for definitely taking the time to spend with myself today. It's always a treat. This is something I love to do, and hopefully we can get together some more in the future. For Black History Month, this was definitely a wonderful treat, though. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Enjoy your meal, and we'll see you at our next event. Look out for more social work events. Next month is Social Work Month, and we have a lot planned. So thank you and enjoy. Bon appetit.